am so torn. I know that raised beds make gardening so much easier, but they are so expensive. I've created so many fancy gardens for my clients, but I know that for most of us, it's just not affordable. In this video, I'm gonna show you how to make a raised bed that is so beautiful, but stays inside your budget. So if you've got $100, a drill, and a way to get yourself to Home Depot, then I've got a plan for you to make the most beautiful raised bed and stay on budget. Let's get started. Step number one is to go shopping. Now, I do love a good shopping trip, but not to a hardware store. That place is so intimidating. But don't worry, I got you. Here is exactly what you've got to get to build this sturdy, beautiful, amazing raised bed. First thing you're gonna look for is the wood. All right, we have searched high and low in this store for cedar boards, and all we could find were treated cedar fence planks. So that's a big no for us. We're gonna go for untreated pine. Then we're going to treat them with our Eco Waste stain. That's going to help the beds be preserved because typically pine won't last very long outdoors. We're going to treat it with our eco-friendly stain. I've done this before, it works. So we've searched high and low. We finally found a friend who we've worked with in a garden space before. And I mean, everyone needs a friend in Home Depot. You know what I'm saying? Because this is it's a hard place to navigate for a person like me. So I've only spent about an hour in here so far, and Donnell just came to my rescue. Thank you, Donnell. Love you forever. He showed us these 2 by 12 by, I think, 10-foot planks. So we're gonna buy 2 of them, that's it, and then have them cut here on the spot so that when I get them home, they're ready to assemble into a garden bed. So grabbing these right now, 2 inches thick, that's the 2. 12, the second number, is how tall the boards are. So 2 inches thick, 12 feet tall, and then the last number is the length of the board, 10. 2 by 12 by 10, I'm gonna get 2 of them. All you need is 2 boards this size. They're pretty heavy, so I'm gonna bring them one at a time over to get them cut right here at the shop. So my secret to building these beds in a beautiful way that's pretty seamless on every corner is using framing angles. This is my favorite secret to creating a raised bed at home that does not require me to have any carpentry skills. It's a framing angle. You can find this in the decking department in any hardware store. I usually find it on an end cap here at Home Depot. They have all these different little hardware pieces that help connect boards, and the framing angle is what you're looking for. It's gonna go right in the middle of 2 boards and give you this space to put your bolts and your screws so that your beds connect seamlessly. You don't have to have any fancy carpentry skills to make this happen, and it's also really inexpensive. What matters here is you want a framing angle that's as tall as possible. We're making a 1-foot tall bed, so the tallest angle I could find is an 8-inch one. They have these shorter ones that are about 2 inches. You don't want to have one that's this small. It's not going to give you the contact that you need. So taller the better. Even if you can find a 12-inch one, that's perfect. Next, you're going to head over to find the nuts and the bolts. When you're picking out the length of your screw, you need to make sure that it's going to go through the wood and be enough to put the bolt on top, but not too much past that because that's going to get in the way of your garden. So this is a 2-inch long screw, 1/4 inch thickness, and that's going to fit perfectly into the framing angle, just like that. You want to add up how many nuts and bolts you need for each and every framing angle. So 8 times 4 is 32. And each of those bolts needed a washer and a nut, which meant 32 washers and 32 nuts. We got everything that we need for a cheap and easy raised bed. So let's head to the checkout counter, see how much money we got to spend. Once you've got all your supplies, it's time to head home and start step number 2. Step number 2 is to preserve your wood. So we want this to be cheap and easy, but we also want this raised bed to last as long as possible. And you can do that by adding a little bit of treatment to your wood that's natural and organic, but will also keep the wood from weathering as you grow your garden in it. Now, our favorite way to do this is with an eco-friendly stain that's made of whey. To use this stain, all you do is drop the minerals into a little bit of water, mix it up, and then we used a sponge to apply the stain all over the wood. Once the wood has completely dried, it's time to move on to step number 3. Step number 3 is to drill holes into your raised bed so you can start to assemble it. To get started, you're going to measure the width of your board. I know that the sign said it was a 2-inch thick board, but it's a little bit less than that. So measure the thickness of your board and then move that far in before you start to make the holes for your framing angle. This allows you to put the board on the inside of the framing angle so that each of the edges fits together nicely like a puzzle. So you'll move in the width of the board, you'll mark your framing angle holes, and then it's time to drill. This honestly is the hardest part of the entire thing. This wood is thick and hard for a reason, because we want our garden to last. But it also means that getting a nice thick hole all the way through this wood is going to take a little bit of elbow grease and patience. So you're going to work one board at a time, and on just one board you're going to attach 2 framing angles, one on either side. And that's prepping you to be able to attach 2 boards to those edges. Now that the holes are drilled, it's time to move on to step number 4. Step number 4 is attaching your framing angle. So you could do this by putting a framing angle on every single board, but what I like to do is just take 2 boards and put 2 framing angles on each one. For me, this is the easiest way to put these boards together. So on both sides, we'll attach the framing angles to the existing holes we've drilled, and we'll do that for 2 boards at a time. So by the time you're finished with this step, you'll have 2 framing angles on 2 boards. Now, as you go through this process, you might find that you have to adjust your holes a little bit. As we got to attaching the framing angles, there might be times where our holes were a little bit off. No problem, just unscrew your framing angle and make the holes a little bit larger so that you can get the bolt into every single hole. Once you've done that, attach your washers and your nuts to each and every bolt on the framing angle, but don't make it too tight because you might have to make some adjustments when you bring in the other 2 boards. Step number 5 is the final one, where you're finally going to attach the rest of the boards and create your first raised bed garden. So you have the boards that have the framing angle on them, and you're going to slide in the boards without the framing angles. You may need to remark your holes and drill a little bit in different directions to fit the bolts into every spot. Once the bolts are in place, screw on those washers and nuts. Don't tighten everything until each and every corner is connected, and then you can go back and tighten every connection so that your raised bed is sturdy and ready to grow. This was the very first kind of raised bed that I ever installed for a client. I had 0 carpentry skills, and my first client wanted a raised bed that I couldn't order from anywhere. The bed was going to be 1 foot wide and 12 feet long, and I just couldn't find a place where I could get a raised bed that was those dimensions. So I had to get to Home Depot and get scrappy. That's when I discovered the framing angles in the decking department, and I found out that Home Depot would cut boards for me. So believe it or not, I drove the boards over to my client's house and built the bed in the exact same way that I taught you to do today. Now, of course, in the world of raised beds, there are hundreds of options. You could do this raised bed even cheaper by buying thinner boards. I've seen some projects where they put beds together just using cedar fence planks. In that case, the bed will be cheaper, but it won't last nearly as long. There are easier ways that you could put raised beds together. For instance, the Gardenery Cedar Raised Bed Kit is so much easier to assemble because there's no drilling necessary, but it is more expensive than this raised bed we put together from the hardware store. When it comes to setting up a raised bed in your vegetable garden, my advice is simple. Get the best raised bed you can afford. For some of us, that's going to mean an even cheaper raised bed, and for some of us, it means we can get a nicer bed to get started. Whatever you do, get the nicest one you can afford at the moment, because that's the one that will last you the longest and make the most of your effort. If you're just starting your vegetable garden journey, I would love to help. Or if you're ready to take your vegetable garden to the next level, I've got a workshop I just recorded on how to do just that, and I'll put a link right below this video to show you how to make your best vegetable garden happen this season. And if you're an experienced gardener who just wants to know how you could actually put these raised beds in other people's yards, you should apply to become a Gardenery consultant. I'll also put a link to apply for our program below this video too. And if you're looking for easier beds to assemble that cost a little bit more, you can find all of our Gardenery Cedar raised beds below this video as well. Now, once you've got this raised bed built, it is time to put it inside the garden and plant it up. And that's what we're going to be teaching you all about how to do in this season. So you want to be sure you're subscribed to our channel and you like this video so that YouTube knows you want to come right back and see the next time I post another video about what to put inside this raised bed. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being part of Gardenery. We would not be here without you, and we are here to support you every single day of your gardening journey. So tell us in the comments what video you want to see next, and I will see you next time.